again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets left center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Ilya able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal. Three in the face. 1-1. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
We showed it in the regular show. We were damn season's here. I think it starts in like a week and a half. We got what, 10 days till October 3rd. I want to say out.
Is it October yet?
Oh, it's so close. We have this really awesome preseason we get to watch now for the next week or so.
Oh no, we get to watch some of the games, not all of them. Because some teams don't like to air the games. Arizona doesn't like to put the game on TV, so we don't get to watch.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I don't understand why, but why wouldn't you want your team to watch, or your team's fans to watch all these games? It's like
I'm wondering if it's like something between like the networks really don't care if it's preseason, so they're not really gonna air it. I don't know.
I'm just gonna say like the NHL is really terrible at putting together good deals for TV and marketing, and they just kind of don't know what they're doing at this point, or just don't fight. They're just kind of like, oh, Fox wants us to do this. Yes, Fox, pay us. We'll do whatever you want. Something along those lines. Like they just can never figure out a good thing to appease fans. It's always about the cash money. That's it.
All right.
I mean, that's what I felt like. I was like, we talked to Adam Brady last week and confirmed it's not a Ducks problem. It's an NHL-wide issue. It's just the way the NHL has kind of formed their contract. So it is what it is, I guess. But well, speaking of preseason, there's several games coming up that are going to be exciting. So we'll be, 3 days in a row of hockey, which is great.
Yeah, 2 against the Kings and 1 against the Sharks.
Are those all televised, Ed?
I'd probably, I would think so. I don't know though. They don't really say to until the day of, and I guess in the case of the Arizona game, they didn't tell. They didn't tell anybody until I think an hour before puck drop. So I thought the game was going to be on TV, and then the Ducks put out that it's only going to be on radio. And then I assumed that like maybe Arizona would put out that it's going to be on TV, but no, they put out it's only going to be on radio.
Tomorrow's NHL Network. Tuesday is NHL Network and Prime Ticket. Wednesday is NHL Network and Prime Ticket, and then Saturday is AM 8:30, which is the last preseason game.
Weird. I would imagine.
Coyotes.
I'd imagine they would like kind of build up, like the closer you get to the actual season, then they would totally go like, hey, we're going to televise more of those. So like the earlier ones where it's like, maybe, hey, we're going to throw out these kids that maybe you don't know or whatever. And we're not really going to televise that. But, when we start throwing out really good guys, then we'll start televising things and make it closer to that. But then the very last game, they go like, nah, we're not going to televise that one.
No, we're going to skip that one.
Yeah, we'll skip over.
I'm just excited hockey's back. We get to watch it tomorrow. That's going to be good.
No, yay!
So let's before we jump into just purely Ducks stuff. Ed, you said you wanted to start with the Pacific Division review that we kind of didn't hit on last show, right? That's where we want to go with that.
We were supposed to get into it. Yeah, we were supposed to be done. And then Jason had his notes for last show. I'm glad we postponed it because I didn't have it. And we were supposed to do it then. Then we didn't really run out of time, but it was like 45 minutes into the show. And I feel like a Pacific Division preview like we did last year takes at least 45 minutes to an hour. And if we're gonna do it justice, then we should probably make it its own show. So here we are. We're making it its own show. And we're saving the Ducks for last. It's a Ducks podcast. And we're saving the Ducks for last. So
okay.
So where are we going then? Arizona?
Yeah. Let's just it's alphabetical. So we'll start with Arizona. Arizona last year, 86 points. I don't know. Kind of just missed out on the playoffs. Like they made a little bit of a push for it. They didn't finish that strong. Antti Raanta hurt for most of the season. Somehow Darcy Kemper kept their hopes alive. They finished above 500, which I think was a bit surprising for everybody. And they added Phil Kessel. They added Carl Soderberg. They get a full season of hopefully a healthy Nick Schmaltz and Antti Raanta for them. pretty promising, right? But we say this. How often do we say this about Arizona? Every year they look pretty promising, and then something goes wrong. So last year they were supposed to be a playoff team or a team that pushed for the playoffs, and nobody could score goals for them. And Antti Raanta got hurt. They still got good goaltending, but they were okay. But this is a team that got close to the playoffs, and they added Phil Kessel. Like that, is that enough?
Well, I mean, going back to the goaltending, yeah, if they can keep Rantanen in there, then I think they're far better. Even though Pat believes their backup is a top 10 goalie in the league.
Antti Raanta?
No, the backup, Kemper.
I mean, clearly. How dare you remember that? Did you put it in your damn notes?
No, it's just he's there. Not even in here. It still baffles me. You had him top 10 goalie in the league.
He was. He's definitely better than Martin Jones.
380 man games lost, tops in the league. It's tough to do anything. And if they miss the playoffs like they did last year by 4 points, as long as they stay a little bit healthier, they're probably in a better spot, you would think, from last year moving into this year. Their biggest problem was offense. It was 28th in goals scored, 26th on the power play. Defense and goaltending wasn't bad. 6th in goals against and 3rd on the penalty kill. That's not a bad place to be at all. I mean, it's kind of weird they didn't make the playoffs, but that's just kind of where they had to be. Adding Phil Kessel, where I would like to say I think that's enough to push them over the edge because it addresses their biggest issue, and that's goal scoring. I haven't seen Phil Kessel in the last 3 years play without an elite center, either Crosby or Malkin. So as good as he is, I feel he's more of a specialist and more of someone who can snipe goals when he's fed the puck a little bit more, not someone that creates the offense. He was able to do that in Toronto on his own, but the NHL is different now, and I'm not quite sure that's going to be enough to really kind of push through. But at least Arizona's in a weak Pacific division, so there's always the opportunity that they could actually improve on that 86 points. They're a bubble team for me. They're close. I'm not just quite sure. The same thing as Ed said. It's just we always say on paper these guys should probably be kicking ass, and they just don't. Something comes up somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the net out. The net out looks that's where you're starting at like the strong point, and it gets weaker as you go forward. I say what you want about Darcy Kemper, but Antti Raanta and Darcy Kemper are going to be good again this year, and that's going to stabilize that defense. I think the defense is pretty solid. It's when you get to the forward group, they can't score. They just can't score. And they had 86 points last season. It was like the highest they've had in 5 years. I don't think trading for Phil Kessel is going to do anything. I don't think it's really going to tick the needle up a lot. He's going to be, 32 or 33 this year. Who knows if he even is going to be able to flourish in Arizona. I mean, it all depends if they have the danger dog carts outside the game and he's able to get a big rep after he plays 20 minutes a night, and maybe he'll get his energy for the next game. Who knows? I don't think it's a big enough deal. I don't think it's a big enough deal to move the needle for this team. I'm just not impressed with their forward group at all. I think that they're going to continue to struggle to score goals, and until they figure that out, this team is just going to be, like you said, a bubble team. They might make the playoffs, but I mean, do they really want to be middling forever? They need to make some adjustments on the forward group here in the next season or two before time runs out on that defense. So that's just how I feel about them too.
There's some decent depth there, like Clayton Keller and Derek Stepan with Phil Kessel. I think is not the best. It's not the best he's had for sure in a long time when he's been playing beside Evgeny Malkin for the last 4 or 5 seasons he's been with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But it's not great. It definitely isn't great. But Nick Schmaltz was pretty good after he came over from Chicago. Then he got hurt, and he's going to be playing with Michael Grabner and I don't know, maybe Christian Dvorak. Their wing depth, I think, is what kind of lets them down. So I think that's why the addition of Phil Kessel is a little bit bigger for them than it looks on paper. And up through the center, like through the middle, having Stepan Schmaltz and Carl Soderberg, it's not the worst in the Pacific Division.
No, but Schmaltz isn't good defensively. He's not even good defensively. So he's got to play, two-way game, and especially, can you imagine if he got paired with Phil Kessel, who doesn't know how to play defense at all either? I mean, that's just going to be a disaster for them. I don't see it really working out for them with the forward group.
I literally think their center depth is a big problem. I just don't feel like they're Eddie anyone pops out at me as a number one center on any team.
Derek
really,
Stepan's as close as it gets.
As close as it gets, and that's pushing it. I mean, and then from that point on, I mean, it drops off significantly throughout the lineup, and that's, it's the offense is still probably going to struggle. Is Phil Kessel the answer? Probably not. But you're hoping he's doing what Phil Kessel did in Pittsburgh. But I find it very hard to believe that Phil Kessel being traded, it's not like he went to Arizona because he wanted to try it out. He had to go there, and now he's kind of stuck with trying to figure this out. And
he's not elite, though. He's a good player, but he's kind of lost that elite status.
Which you would at 30, whatever.
32? Yeah,
it is. You
but
almost
he had 82 points last year. He's playing in Pittsburgh. He's playing with Malkin. He's playing on the top power play unit. He'll be the go-to guy. I think that's.
Did you guys love how it finally came out that Malkin hated him?
Yeah. He's a specialist. So if he gets a ton of power play time, then he's probably okay. But at that point, that's literally their biggest threat, and so I think everyone kind of clams down. Whereas, like when he's on Pittsburgh, he can't really be, he kind of can get lost because there's a Crosby, there's a Malkin, there's somebody else somewhere. Yeah. So I think the other teams will probably focus on him a little bit more on the power play. So I think you'll see a drop in production.
He hasn't had to do this since he was in Toronto, where he's the go-to guy, and nothing.
That was a different NHL.
Clayton Keller is going to be a great player this year, but that's the only line I think that's going to threaten for offense from them, and you can see that from what they had last year. Nick Schmaltz isn't going to have good enough line mates, I think, to kind of replicate what he did last year, and maybe the reason he did what he did last year is because he was playing with Derek Stepan and Clayton Keller and had an increased role over what he got. I'm sure Arizona's not too happy the way Dylan Strome finished the season in Chicago, almost a point per game, playing with Alex DeBrincat. So let's finish it off in Arizona. We'll get to our rankings at the end when we've kind of gone everybody, but they had 86 points last year. Do you think they finished above, below, or the same?
I'd say anywhere between 80 and 85 points. Around 80. I'd say 80.
I'd say below. Yeah, below 86. But they're a bubble team. I mean, it's a possibility. Yeah, I don't know. If 86 didn't make it, then I don't think going lower is going to make it either.
I think this division is so bad this year, and it's kind of
there's a possibility.
Open.
Yeah,
it was like that last year too. But I think I really like Antti Ranta, and I think a full season of him will only help them. It's not like they had goaltender. It's not like they had goaltender issues last year because Darcy Kemper was really good. So it's not like Antti Ranta's all of a sudden going to boost him to a stratosphere they weren't already in with Kemper last year. But I think they could finish around the same. I think 86, 87, 88 is I think what they're going to finish at. They're not going to make the playoffs because I think there's some better teams here, but I think they'll finish. I don't think they're going to be much worse. And if they are worse, I think it is kind of what you guys said, around like 85 or 84 points.
Yeah, it's not amazing here.
Let's move on to the Calgary Flames. This one was the most interesting for me personally because last year you guys laughed at me for picking the Calgary Flames to win the Pacific Division. And they won the Pacific Division. They had 107 points last year.
Keep stroking yourself.
They didn't do a lot, and arguably what they did.
No, they did not. They lost
was a detriment to
the
team.
Last place team in the Western Conference, or last playoff eligible team.
Specifically in the offseason, they swapped James Neal for Milan Lucic, which I think is probably a downgrade. Not that Neal was doing anything for them, but Milan Lucic wasn't doing anything at Edmonton. I think they're. If anybody wins that trade, it's maybe James Neal having a resurgence playing with Connor McDavid, but that's it.
Who?
They swapped Mike Smith for Cam Talbot, which again it made no sense because Mike Smith played pretty decent last year, but I guess they're going with David Rittich or maybe trying to get what Cam Talbot had in his first couple seasons in Edmonton.
Jesus Christ, dude! And, downfall of this team.
Matthew Tkachuk still isn't signed. There's less than 2 weeks to the start of the season. Matthew Tkachuk isn't signed. And there's a potential that he goes into the first couple weeks or months of the season not part of this team as well. Then all of that responsibility goes on Monahan, Goodrow, and Lindholm. The depth after that without Matthew Tkachuk is not great. It's Backlund, Frolik, and Sam Bennett as a second-line unit, which isn't that great. And I guess it's not much better than they had last year. But Matthew Tkachuk is a great player, and not having him and to start the season means maybe Milan Lucic has to jump into the top 6, which is something you don't want to see if you're a Calgary Flames fan. I think there's only one way this team can go, and it's down. I don't think they get 107 points this year. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, this team overshot expectations a lot. To touch a little bit on the whole Lucic and Neal thing. I mean that was even in the trade that they put. Like, there's certain things where, like, if someone outscores the other dude, we get a better draft pick. Or some BS is in that, like, trade clause where, like, if Neal is significantly better, we get more compensation because we took Lucic for you. I mean, why would you do that? Lucic is a lot meaner than Neal, but I mean, they were putting Neal on the fourth line for a long time, and he's going to outproduce, whatever Lucic might do, because Lucic had a chance to play with Connor McJesus, David, as you call him. But the biggest thing for me is that last year, those were career years. Their top 4 goal getters, all of them were shooting over 14%. The highest shooting percentage of their top 4 goal scorers, their lowest out of the top 4 was Johnny Gaudreau at 14.7. Anything 10 or 11 is an amazing year. You start going into 14 percentile, you are just at a whole nother level that's not sustainable season after season.
Lindholm's going to regress this year for sure.
He's going to regress.
I talked about that last season. He was so stoked about it. He was almost was he a point per game guy last year or close?
Yeah, he was. I think he was over.
Damn close, I think.
Know. I'm gonna check.
Yeah. Well, whatever it was. I mean, the top getters on that team were insane. I mean, it was kind of one of those years where it's like all of a sudden, Eddy said he called it, but it's just like one of those things where it's like you can't call their top 4 goal scorers shooting over 14.7%. That doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen year after year. So there's definitely going to be a regression. Goaltending, I think there's going to be 1A and 1B. They want Talbot to maybe get that chance. In my opinion, he had one great season in Edmonton. He had always been a good backup to Lundqvist out in the Rangers. He's going to be the backup. Rittich is going to be the next guy that they're trying to go. But I think it's going to be 1A, 1B, and it's going to go back and forth. So I don't think it's all that much better of a situation where Mike Smith was there, and now he's over in Edmonton. So I think this team regresses a crap ton. And if you want to look at Norris winning trophy, Mike Giordano, between 2016 2018, 3 seasons, he had 77 points. Last year, he had 74. That's a hell of a year, and that's not a repeatable year, in my opinion, for a 35-year-old defenseman.
Everything went well for them last year. I don't really.
It's amazing. Everything lined up.
Except the playoffs. Were they the team last year that kind of like overdoes it all season, and then you finally realize what they really are come playoff time, and they just were not able to compete? Their defense concerns me too, man. They don't really have. I don't really love their defense. I feel like Travis Hamonic, fine. Noah Hannafin, I mean, he had a lot of expectation coming out of that draft in 2015. I think he was a top 10 pick, top 5 pick. So it's not like he's old and he's washed up. He could definitely turn into something that, maybe having a better season this year or next. But he's going to have to step up, especially if Giordano doesn't have the performance that he had last year. He needs to become more of a play driver. But it all circles back down to the crease, dude. What a nightmare in net. I mean, David Rittich is going to be the starter, and Cam Talbot's going to be the backup. But I agree with you, Jay. It's going to be 1A, 1B. It's kind of like, which flavor of crap do you want tonight in net? Well,
I don't think Rittich is that bad. I don't think Talbot's that bad.
God, dude,
but if this team regresses, then that's going to have a huge impact on the goalies, because I think Mike Smith wasn't great last year, but Calgary was so good and they scored so many goals that it didn't really matter. And if Lindholm has a regression, which we think he is, if Matthew Tkachuk doesn't start the first month of the season, that's an impact on them. Giordano doesn't put up the points he did last year. Like, they don't have Dougie Hamilton anymore, so Giordano is one of the only guys that's getting points from the blue line for them. This is probably the most, even in any division, the easiest team I think you could pick for a regression. Like 107 points is massive. They easily
they'll have 92 points next season. Watch 92.
I think 92 to 95. They're going to be better than Arizona, and they're still a team who can push for a playoff spot. Like there's. I know we're all saying they're going to regress. There's a chance that they do exactly the same thing they did last year, right? There still is that chance.
Yeah.
Maybe not a good chance, but I still have them being a bubble playoff team, maybe a team that can sneak in the wild card. But I think they're going to be one of the most obvious teams that are going to fall from 107 down into at least a 10-point regression.
At least, yeah, I agree with you, man.
Especially
with that goaltending. I can't wait to just laugh every night they play.
But you also thought about that with Mike. You also thought about Mike Smith and they still got 107 points with him. And
that was his playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
No, it was careers everywhere.
Let's move on to everybody's favorite team every year to talk about, and that's Edmonton Oilers, because Connor McDavid. I think it's safe to say now, right? Like, he is the best player in the league, right?
I mean, he's really close to Austin Matthews. It's like it's so close.
He's the Canadian version of Austin Matthews.
Exactly. I could have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it. You took the words out of my brain, but I got to my tongue. That was just perfect. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Yeah, you can't have the best players forever. Sometimes they just, are born in America. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, a lot of Americans drafted this year.
So Edmonton adds James Neal. Somehow a team that's so bad on the wings got worse because they added James Neal. They didn't do really much anything else. They lost Jesse Puljujarvi to just poor management. The fact that they're not playing him the minutes that they can play. He wanted to trade. They didn't want to trade him. I think he's playing in Europe right now until they can figure this situation out. So he's not going to be there. There's nothing really going. And then are you going to play? Last year was ridiculous because I think Draisaitl and McDavid both had over 100 points. Did they not? Or
yes, they did. Yeah, I lost that stupid bet about Leon Draisaitl not even hitting 50 goals, and he did. So
another thing I was right about last year, that Draisaitl hit.
Well, this 50. Is the year for regression for you, my friend.
Yeah, it likely is, and I think that comes with the fact the Oilers are probably going to split up Draisaitl and McDavid, because that doesn't look too good on a team that misses the playoffs as easily as the Oilers did, and you have two guys who had 100 points. So I think they're going to experiment splitting them up. The problem is, there's no wing depth on this team after that. Who's the best winger after that? Maybe you would say Jesse Puljujarvi, but he's not going to be there. And the only other top four
Neal.
Neal will probably get a shot playing with Connor McDavid, because if Draisaitl doesn't play on the top line, he'll likely play on the wing with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and they'll go. I think they're going to go to a similar setup to what Pittsburgh had when they had Crosby and Malkin, where Malkin would get the better winger and they would just throw whoever with Sidney Crosby and say, make this guy better. So Sidney Crosby played with Brian Rust, and he played with Jake Guentzel earlier in his career. He played with Chris Kunitz, and they
every time you say Guentzel, I just think of Doc Emmerich. Guentzel, because that's how he says it.
Every time I say Guentzel, I think of Jake Gyllenhaal. Is that weird?
Yeah, it is weird.
Okay, sorry.
Well, hey, Eddie, didn't Connor McDavid spend a lot of time with Zach Kassian last year?
Yep. Again, that's the way they're going, right? Is they're just throwing whoever. Make this guy better. We don't know where to put him. We don't want to put him with Nugent-Hopkins.
Lucic was that person for a while too. I mean,
I think he's been with everybody. He was with. He's
been with every
Ty Ratty last year. I think he played
every
with Ryan
crappy
Strome.
Big hitter guy. Is who's the second worst penalty kill, 28th in shots per game. It lives and breathes through whatever Connor McJesus does. Literally, it's the same problem as before. Now it's just really with the worst goalie. If you had Cam Talbot and you had Mike Smith, I would take Cam Talbot, and that's kind of splitting hairs at the very bottom of the pool here. But, I mean, it's quite literally that bad. They just got a worse goalie, and they maybe got a little bit better with Neal, who was playing fourth-line minutes and might produce somewhere. But they got the same problems. It hasn't changed. They haven't gotten any better. I mean, other than Neal, they didn't add anybody.
And teams, you can see teams do that if they have young guys coming up who can step right into the lineup and play well, but the Oilers really don't. Kyler Yamamoto will probably push for a roster spot, but he's not a guy I think that's going to be that great.
How is a team that bad still can't come up with a farm team to help them at some point?
Well, when you rebuild since 2007...
and when you mismanage your top winger and Jesse Puljujarvi, a guy you drafted third overall, and you don't have him in the lineup, I think that's a huge misstep for them too. And he's not going to be there. Yamamoto might make a step forward. On defense, it's really much of nothing. They've got Darnell Nurse and Clefbaum still, and Larson is still there. But if Evan Bouchard comes up and plays, and maybe plays well, then that could be a bonus for them, but it's just not enough. They've got the depth that they have up front is poor. The only saving grace is you have Connor McDavid, and the fact that he's easily going to get you 90 to 100 points, but you need other guys to play well. Like you can see that last year, they finished with 79 points, despite having a Connor McDavid and Draisaitl have unbelievable seasons. Like you can't do it.
Do they trade Connor McJesus? I mean, is that a possibility to bring in anything? Because there's nothing. There's no defense behind it. There's no goaltending. There's no wingers. There's no center depth after Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins. There's nothing there. You're just wasting his talent, and they can't get any better. Are they going to suck for another 3 years?
They have to, because you can't trade them. You just can't, because like Pat said, you lose any deal.
You can't be that same team that trades that generational player twice.
You can't.
No. Known as that franchise.
Yeah, let's trade an MVP. Is trading an MVP a good thing? Let's do it. Let's do that. Let's trade Taylor Hall. That's a great idea.
I feel bad. I feel bad for Connor McDavid, the fact that he's gotten put in this situation. I'm sure he'd rather be in Buffalo right now. And Jack Eichel is obviously relieved he's probably not in Edmonton. It's bad. The Sabres are a bad team, but at least for the Sabres, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a light at the end of the tunnel for the Sabres because they've got Rasmus Dahlin, they've got Jeff Skinner signed, Jack Eichel. Like, they look like a better team, and they're getting around the hump. They made some good trades, Colin Miller and Brandon Montour. So like they're looking better at least, right? Like their defense is okay and their forward depth is okay.
Let's see what Dave Tippett can do, right? Let's see what Dave Tippett does with this army of garbage behind Draisaitl and McJesus here.
Ken Holland.
Are they getting better than 79
points? He's been doing awesome over there in Detroit.
If they're better than 79 points, it's like 80, 81, 82. And it's only because of Connor McDavid.
I'm going to say they go 85. I think they're going to do better than last year.
I don't. I think all the other almost all the other teams in the Pacific Division,
they've proven it.
Almost all the other teams in the Pacific Division have gotten better personnel-wise.
Except LA. LA's gone.
And I even have a really funny thing on that one. But besides LA and then maybe Vancouver. Other than that, everyone's at least gotten better. So I don't see how they get better in that division, in my opinion.
Any team
I think it's
can make something happen every now and again. I don't think it's outside the possibility that they hit 85.
It's not, because you have Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
I think because you have a player
the second best player in hockey. Because you have the second best player in hockey.
Full wrap up. All right, who's next?
Let's move on to LA. LA last year, easily the worst team in the Pacific Division, 71 points. They finished the season okay, but Kovalchuk didn't work out. Another thing Pat was wrong about, that didn't work out for the LA Kings. They decided to go out. They decided to go out and add another Russian, Proc Horkin from the KHL, from the same team that Kovalchuk played for. He was point per game guy in the KHL last year. They've got guys like Kempe, Grundstrom, and IFL that are going to be stepping up into top 9 roles permanently. Tyler Toffoli was absolute garbage last year. I still think he's a good player, so maybe he turns it around. And then Jonathan Quick can't seem to stay healthy at any point in his career, and he's getting up there in age, so that's going to be a big turning point for them. They have the potential to be better, but I honestly have no idea what this roster is going to shape up like. They have a lot of guys young guys who could make the team. They have older guys who could take those spots. Their defense looks like really, really bad after Drew Doughty. I just don't know. I don't know. You don't know what Jonathan Quick you're going to get, right? Like the Kings, it's hard to say you're going to be. I don't think they're going to be 71 points bad. I don't think they're going to be that bad. Like that's really, really bad. But they didn't add anything to make themselves better either.
No, they're the worst team in the Pacific Division by far. They're going to finish at the very bottom.
Yeah, NHL Network kind of put it in there. They said key departures, Phaneuf. Key arrivals, Todd McClellan. Their coach was their key arrival. It was no players. It was nothing to help the team get any better. This is a team that was 30th in offense, minus the Ducks being 31st. But 22nd on defense. The power play was bottom 5. Penalty kill, bottom 3.
What does that tell you? That tells you Doughty and
bottom
Kopitar 2. Not good.
Yeah, I'm willing to go out and just say that was just a bad season.
Year. They're definitely going to
bad year, but it's not gonna rebound.
It's going to rebound, but it's not going to get significantly enough better to where they're going to be a good team.
They're stuck because
they don't have enough.
They've relied on Kopitar being Kopitar. They lucked out with how well Brown has actually rebounded from what I thought was a huge liability on their team.
Last year in a horrible season.
I respect that. That was really a really good rebound for a guy I don't really like, but once again, one of those guys, if he was on my team, I'd probably like him, but he's not, so I hate him. Quick, love Quick back in the day. He's a shell of his former self. I don't see him getting any better. They have problems in goaltending. They have an elite center, an elite defenseman, and their goaltending used to be elite, and they're still holding on to that, and it's not quite there. So, and everything around that kind of blows. I think Toffoli will definitely have a better year than he had last year, but I don't know how much better. But new coach, new atmosphere, new frame of thinking. Maybe they rearrange how they play the game, because it didn't work with Willie Desjardins.
Yeah. Yeah, and then John Stevens took over after that, I think.
Yeah, John
Stevens got fired, then Willie Desjardins took over.
Desjardins came in, and it never worked, and it was just a lost season for them. I don't think they're gonna just jump back into it. They got too many holes, and they don't have enough coming up behind it to really fill that area. So they're kind of stuck in a crappy division as a crappy team.
Yeah, I think Doughty and Kopitar, I mean, they're the cornerstones of this franchise right now, obviously. You used to be able to throw in Carter and Quick into that mix as well and say that they're all important pieces. But right now, it's Doughty and Kopitar that need to kind of pull things together here and stop some of the bleeding. But I think, like you guys are talking about, there's so much horrible roster decisions that were made, contracts, all that stuff that have just kind of pinned the Kings in to not being able to make changes. That they're not going to be better for a while. I think this is a full rebuild. I think they're going to bounce back, meaning Kopitar and Doughty, but not to 90 points, not to an elite level defenseman again. I think those times are slowly slipping back a bit, but I still think they're good players. Question for goalie guru Lamb: do the Kings finally make Quick a backup and give the reins over to Jack Campbell this season? Because they should, because Quick is awful.
They won't initially. It's Quick's net. He still has the ability to play. His style is different, and it's not going to work in today's NHL. And here's my honest opinion: is I loved Quick to death in the early 2000s to mid 2000s, but really recently you can just tell his style is not going to be sufficient for this league. He can be quick, he can make that dramatic save, but if there's not any sort of defensive structure to really kind of almost protect him a little bit, he's in trouble. And I don't think he's all of a sudden just going to become a 33-year-old goalie that just all of a sudden becomes way the hell better than he was in the past. So what you saw last year is probably what you'll see next year. And it's going to be a transition, but it's tough. They're not going to give it away right away to Campbell, and even Campbell is not really their savior or their answer either. So it's really kind of still Quick's job until they find somebody who can play better at this level. And right now they don't have that depth.
So where do you think they finish in points then? Where are we at here? Are they going to finish worse? I think they finish worse. I think they get 70. What did they finish with?
71. They finished 71 last year. It's hard to get worse than that.
Okay. They're going to go sub 70 this year. I'm going to give them 68 points.
Oh, wow.
I'll bump them up a little bit. I think Todd McClellan can do a couple of tweaks here and there. He's played enough in this division.
Oh, and Trent Yanni, former Anaheim great, is going to be on the bench with them too.
Yeah, so I mean, this is not a team that's going to challenge for a playoff spot, but I don't think they're going to be as horrible as they were last year. I think last year was just that loss.
68 points.
That's like well, they were the second worst team in the league last year. I think the only team worse was the Senators, and I think they finished sub 70, I believe. And it was like 68 or 69. That was a horrible year from a really, really, really bad Sens team.
Welcome to Ottawa West.
I think the Kings are still bad, and I think they're still the worst team in the Pacific Division. But I think
Western Conference,
depending on what Prokhorkin can do, playing him with Kovalchuk might help. I think Kovalchuk might be able to rebound a little bit. I think Kempe and Grundstrom are young players that are good and that are going to get better if they get top 6 roles. I think the Kings will be a little bit better. And I think
Foley will be
has
better,
a better year.
I think, yeah.
But
I mean, they scored 7 goals last night in preseason against the Canucks. So.
I think like 75 points. I don't think a lot. I think, the slight increase because they were so bad last year. But
still last in the division.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for them all year.
68 points.
Last California team, San Jose Sharks, probably the biggest subtraction of any team in the division. They lost Joe Pavelski to the Dallas Stars. They didn't bring anything to replace him. They have a lot of depth, so it's not like they really had to, and they have a lot of salary cap issues to begin with. Kevin Labanc is going to probably be the guy who jumps up into a top 6 role permanently to replace Joe Pavelski. He's going to have to do basically what he did last year, if not better, to help kind of supplement the loss of Joe Pavelski and what he brought to the team. Erik Karlsson is going to have to stay healthy and play 70 to 80 games if they're going to be good. And I think the big thing for them is this was a team who still finished with 101 points, and Martin Jones had a sub-900 save percentage last year. Like, if he's marginally better and the Sharks can overcome the loss of Joe Pavelski, they will be one of the better teams in the Pacific Division. They should be. Right? Like there's no going down for Martin Jones. Like, that's the saving grace for the Sharks. So they look at last year and say, he can't be worse. So if he's a little bit better and we just play like we did last year, should make the playoffs. They should be one of the top teams in the division, despite losing Joe Pavelski, because they still have Logan Couture and Timo Meier, and they've got a lot of very, very good players there. Evander Kane, like they're still a good team.
Timo Meier's damn good, man. Very, very good player. They got a gem right there in that guy for sure. He's gonna be elite if he's not already.
Yeah, and I mean, I could see 4 30-goal scorers on this team between Couture, Hurdle. I think probably gets into that 30-goal scorer. Meier and Evander Kane. Again, I feel like that's 4 guys, if they stay healthy, can easily get 30 goals. And then Karlsson had 3 goals last year, and they all came late in the season. Besides dealing with a little bit of injury, but it's also that first year of going from everything you've ever known in one team and one faction, and then all of a sudden you're in a completely different area and a completely different situation, and all of a sudden you're not relied on to be this, that guy, or the other. He still makes good plays. He just didn't hit the same level of goals. He only played 50-odd games, but he had 40-some-odd points, but 3 goals. That's not Karlsson. That's not what you're going to see year in and year out. I think that was just maybe a little blip.
Yeah, I was reading about him. Dom Lucian from The Athletic said something like he had one of the highest expected goal percentages last season. It was amongst all defenders. It was one of the best seasons by a defender for that, and it just didn't translate into scoring a ton of goals. He still played really well. Despite looking like he was a little slow in the playoffs. I felt like he's still a damn good defenseman.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you can get 4 30-goal scorers, Ducks didn't have 1. Then you have obviously 2 Norris Trophy candidate defensemen on defense that can put up more goals than they did last year. Goaltending's the only problem, and like Ed said, you can only kind of go up from how bad last year was. I had a game this year or this season, two weeks ago, where I said I literally feel like Martin Jones. My team was just dominating. I was just letting everything in, and I felt like that was a Martin Jones-esque type season. It was just, it sucks. Put it behind you. Get a little bit better. And there's no way that San Jose, even with Pavelski gone, if you still have 43, if you have 4 30-goal scorers and 2 top offensive defenseman and a goaltender who's average to above average, and this team could easily be tops on the division.
I think we don't give San Jose enough credit for drafting some of the players that they've gotten. They've got a lot of good young players that are going to be with the Barracuda this year that could make a jump. I think Sasha Chmelevsky is a really good young player. They have Ivan Chekovich, who's a good young player as well, who could make the jump into the top 6 eventually by the end of the season. Antti Sulamela, I think he'll probably be their 3rd or 4th line center. He was pretty good last year after coming over from Finland. They didn't draft him, but they signed him. Marcus Sorensen is a pretty good player. He burned the Ducks a couple seasons ago when they played the Sharks in the first round. Like, they've got some of these kind of good role guys who just work in the bottom 6 and can kind of jump up and play well. Kevin Labanc was a role guy until last year when he put up over 50 points, and he's going to get a top 6 role this year. So they've just got really, really good depth. The bottom part of their defense isn't great, but you don't really need it to be when your top two, on your first pairing you've got Brent Burns, and your second pairing you've got Erik Karlsson. Like, you don't really need it to be great. And the bottom pairing, where they're only going to play about 12 minutes a night, I think they're going to be better than 101 points, because I think Martin Jones is still going to be bad, but he's going to be above 900 in save percentage this year, which is going to give the Sharks a couple extra wins, which means they're going to have a couple more points than 101. I think they're likely going to top the Pacific Division unless something goes bad, unless they deal with injuries or just major regression from guys like Thomas Hertl and Timo Meier, but I don't see that happening.
I don't think they did enough to replace Joe Pavelski.
They didn't do anything.
That's a big loss.
They're just hoping Timo Meier can be 40 goals.
People step in and do it, and then Pavelski put up the points and the goals. And the Sharks team's gotten a lot older, so I mean they're still in that win now mode. But I think that Erik Karlsson's had time to heal. This whole team's had time, to regroup. I think they're going to be right at 100 points again for sure. But I'm going to be very interested to see what that loss of Joe Pavelski looks like, because I think he did more than just score goals. This guy was a heart and soul. He was the team captain of the squad. He led them. He was good on both sides of the puck. I really feel that that's a big loss for them, and that's kind of like the thing I want to look at this year. Besides Martin Jones taking a shit in that again, but
the only thing I was worried about was just how many concussions in the playoffs he got, and so if I was Sharks management, I would be on the same boat. It was just like, well, I'm not gonna pay this dude because right now, I think he's a solid hit away from being out for a significant amount of time, and you want to keep that giant contract that you had. What Dallas signed him for, you have to put that on the books, and that just leaves too much. They're too constricted if they don't move that contract. I mean, if injuries happen, they can maybe make things happen because they have that extra cap space now. My thought.
Where do they finish the points then? Do you guys think they're all 100 points?
Over 100. I think 105, 106. I think they take a little bit of a step forward.
I think they top the division.
We have three teams left.
Imagine Martin Jones wasn't always this bad. Imagine if he, there's a chance he comes out and has a great year, right? Like if he has like a 915 save percentage and is just an average goaltender, and the Sharks are just as good as they were last year on offense and defense, they could be like really, really, really good this year. There's a chance for them to be that good. It just all depends if a couple of things work out, right? Like if these guys can overcome the loss of Joe Pavelski and what
they literally should have traded for a goaltender, though. Ed, come on.
They should have. They should have at the end of at the trade deadline last year because
they could have gotten Ryan Miller.
Apparently.
But let's move on to Vancouver. I think this one's kind of interesting because Vancouver, they always seem to be this team that should be rebuilding, but they never do. And they go out and get a lot of guys that are not old, but older than what this team seems to be in the type of transition they're trying to go through. But they added Ferland, they added JT Miller, they added Tyler Myers, and then they added Jordy Ben. But those first three are pretty big acquisitions. Michael Ferland has been a top six forward for Calgary and Carolina the last 3 years. I don't think he is. But on this team, he probably will be. JT Miller has been very good. He was really good last year for Tampa Bay Lightning. And Tyler Myers will be likely a top pairing or second pairing defenseman for Vancouver. And Elias Pettersson last year was just unbelievable. I thought he was going to get killed. The guy's a twig. I thought he was going to come into the NHL and just get absolutely killed. But one of the most skilled players I've seen in a very long time to come into the NHL. At that age and that size and just dominate. They signed Brock Besser, so he'll be back. Bo Horvat, 1-2 down the middle of Horvat Pettersson is going to be great for them. And a full season of Quinn Hughes as well, who looked really good at they'll think 5 games after his season with Michigan last year. So you add Quinn Hughes and Tyler Myers on the blue line, you get a full season of Pettersson, Besser, and you add Miller and Ferland to that mix. They look like they're going to be better.
The top-heavy side of it is what's going to be better. I don't think they have a lot of depth after those top guys, though. I think that's where they're going to, herein lies the problem in Vancouver right now.
Yeah, and mostly that they had 0 30-goal scorers. Yeah, Pettersson had some injuries. But if you look at those top three, your Petterssons, your Horvat, your Besser, after that, they go from mid to upper 20s to like low teens, I mean, as far as goal scoring goes. So they're going to rely heavily on those guys to either do what they did or be a little bit better. They added Ferland, which I think is probably, in my opinion, I'm really high on Verlander. I like him in a weird way, but I think he can do that. But they're going from 26th offense, 22nd power play, and a third of the points that Pettersson had all came from the power play. So as good as Pettersson is, when a third of your points come with the extra man, it's not necessarily 5-on-5 as much. So Markstrom I like in goaltending, and even their backup Demko I think is the next up and coming thing. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how it goes. This is a bubble team for me, and Quinn I think could be Hughes for the Vancouver Canucks, but it's going to be weird for me. I don't know. I mean,
their starting goaltenders got backup numbers, man. 9-10, 9-12, 9-12 last few years.
Last year he was good. Last year he was on fire. He was pretty good last year. Yeah, Markstrom's numbers were pretty good last year. I think it was 9-2. I think it was over 9-2.
At one point, Thatcher Demko was supposed to be one of the best goalie prospects in the league. Last year was
he's kind of fallen off. Yeah,
it wasn't a welcome, debut to the NHL for him. And last year, the Canucks had a ton of injuries in net and issues. Just they didn't have enough goalies at one point to roster for one night. They had to emergency call up Michael DiPietro from the CHL, which does not happen that often. He got absolutely shelled in that one game that I think he let in like 6 or 7 goals in that game. Then they sent him right back down to Ottawa. But I think with Markstrom and Demko, as long as they don't have those injury issues, I think it's not great. But there's enough potential there in Demko and at least consistency to be average for Jakob Markstrom, and maybe a little bit of potential to be a little bit more than that if the Canucks can get things together defensively. And I think maybe having Myers and Quinn Hughes back there could help that out. And I like their coach. I think there is potential to be, I don't want to say a dark horse, but to be a surprising team in the Pacific Division. I still don't think they're a playoff team by any means, but there is a chance that they could be better than, say Arizona or even Calgary this year. If
I'll give them 88 points on the season is where I stand with them. I'm not really thrilled about their goaltending situation, honestly. And I think when you have healthier players, that's going to significantly help your roster, obviously. So I think if they can avoid those this year, I think they're going to be a little better than last year, but I don't see any significant strides in Vancouver.
You know what? I think they surprised a lot of teams. Pettersson specifically probably surprised a ton of other teams, but now it's like, oh, okay, this is what this kid does, and this is how we're going to play. Now he could be elite enough that he can overcome some of those focuses, but whenever a player comes in and, like you said, he's a twig, and it's just it's weird, but he's good. And he's got a good shot. If you start focusing on that team, go like, okay, we really have to focus. This is what this kid does. Here's the video. Here's what he likes to do. You start getting the tendencies. You start shutting those players down. And if you don't add anything from last season, I don't see a progression. I can see staying the same. I feel like they'll kind of be that same level they were this year, which was 81 points.
81, yeah.
81 points.
I think there's a chance they could be better because I do like the additions they made. A lot of teams in the Pacific Division didn't really do much, and I think the Canucks were one of the only teams really to go out and do something big. Other than
Myers.
Yeah, well, other than Arizona, but
he's not going to be good.
Like Arizona added Soderberg and Kessel, and that was the big addition for them. San Jose didn't add anybody. LA didn't really add anybody. Edmonton, James Neal. Calgary added Milan Lucic, and Vegas didn't add anybody either. So the Vancouver Canucks were really the only ones who got
Kings added
in a
McClellan.
roster. Yeah, that's the big addition for them. But Vancouver's the only ones who actually really went out and did anything. So I think there is a chance that they get better. I think, like Pat said, about 86 to 88 points, I think. But there is a big potential for that to bust if Elias Pettersson has a sophomore slump this year. There's a chance that things could go really downhill. I don't think he's going to, but if he gets injured or things don't go well for them, that's a huge loss for them. I don't think they can overcome.
What's weird is they were 18th on defense and 11th on penalty kill. So they added two, in their mind, really good defensemen. They added, Jordy Ben and Myers. They seem to focus a little bit more on the defensive side, where it's like, okay, on the offensive side, that's where they really struggled at 26 on offense. They didn't really do much other than Furland. So that's where I kind of get a little confused if they're going to be any better, because they were all right on defense, but that seems like where they felt they needed the most improvement, or they went out and spent the most money on. It just makes sense to me. That's all.
All right. Let's before we get to the Ducks, last team we have to talk about is Vegas. Again, didn't do too much, but that top six is going to be a problem for a lot of teams this year. Full season of Mark Stone, who's arguably one of the most underrated players in the league, probably up there. You know, him, Barkov, and a couple others are some of the most underrated players in this league. He's going to be just a monster for them this year.
They're winning the division.
Carlson, Smith,
They're that good.
Pacioretty's having a good preseason. I think he's a good rebound candidate for them as well, because I think he'll have a good year, especially if he's playing on that top line with Stastny and Mark Stone. Like Stastny, Mark Stone, and Pacioretty, that has potential to be one of the better lines in hockey this year, just because I like the makeup of that a lot. Then you've got the go-to for them that they've had for, since they started this team in Marshall Carlson and Riley Smith as your second pairing. You got a guy like Alex Tuck, who I think had over 20 goals last year on the third pairing. You got Cody Eakin, who's a good, reliable third line center as well. The defense is still meh, but they've made it work somehow. Like Shea Theodore is a great player. I like some of the guys they have down there, but when you got Derek Anglin still starting down there, it's not the best defense core. And I think if Marc-Andre Fleury has to stay healthy all year, he did last year, but he has to this year again, and he's getting older. He has to stay healthy. They're going to be good, but they're going to score a lot of goals. And I think one X factor for them is Cody Glass is going to be a guy who could rocket up the lineup for them. And if he does, that just adds another weapon on offense. They're going to be a fun team to watch nonetheless. They're going to score a ton of goals.
They've always been a fun team to watch ever since they've been in existence. What's good about them is that their forwards, they're not only good on offense, but they're actually really strong on defense. They support really well, which kind of makes up for the defensive shortcomings they have. When you look on paper and the defensemen they have, it kind of, it's like nothing to brag about or, be proud about. But their forwards are so good at coming back, helping out, picking up guys, and then also being able to outlet and be, a facilitator for offense. Forwards coming back on defense and being facilitators for offense is amazing. Fleury, he has to be in top form, and Subban, the backup, has to be better than he has been. Fleury is getting way up there in age, and they can't keep relying on him. I mean, it's been fun to watch for a little while, but at some point you got to do that. And I feel their key to success to winning the Stanley Cup is not giving up 4 goals and a 5-minute penalty kill. If they can handle that one
Ricky's been mentioning that in our chat since probably the beginning of the show.
As long as they can figure that whole little thing out real quick, they'll be a much better team come playoff time.
Maybe for some compelling hockey.
What do you think they finished?
Ever.
93 points last year. Do you think they're better than they were last year?
Yeah, but I don't think tops.
4-point team. I think they're going to win the division. I think they're going to smash through the Pacific, no problem.
I think it's them in San Jose.
In San Jose.
Yeah,
it's their
100%.
top teams.
All right. We'll finish it off with the team I think everybody's here for. We left it for the end, but the Anaheim Ducks probably underwent the most transition of any team, I think. Firing the head coach, a lot of young players coming in, Corey Perry getting bought out. We've covered all this multiple times. Ryan Kessler and Patrick Eaves are out for the season, so we're going to see a lot of different guys, and probably the most out of any team in bounce back, injury bounce back, and breakout candidates on this team. You got Andre Kasha and Comtois and Terry and Steele as possible breakout candidates. You got Ricard Raquel as a bounce back candidate. They're going to be fun, right? Like Dallas Eakins, obviously all the players, look at all the comments, especially from Ricard Raquel and Silfverberg, and you look at the comments that they've made to the media lately, they're pumped. They like what Dallas Eakins brings. It's a refreshing new environment. So, Raquel said it's a new vibe in the organization. Everybody looks happy, and there's still good players on this team. Like we've talked about teams who don't have a lot of depth. Arizona doesn't have a lot of depth. They've got a good maybe top line. The Ducks have some depth if young players can step up and play well, and if guys like Ricard Raquel and Andre Kasha can bounce back, and for Kasha's case can stay healthy, there's potential to be the dark horse of the Pacific Division, right? Like there's a chance that they could slip into the playoffs.
I guess you can call it a dark horse if you don't. I don't know. Like, I hate saying that because, like, I guess everyone else expects us to be bad. I haven't seen that. The second Carlisle was gone and I saw what we did with Bob Murray behind the net. Literally, Bob Murray did nothing, but he was just there for evaluation and just trying to figure things out of who he wants to get rid of and who he doesn't. And you watch them do that, and then all of a sudden the team just became entertaining. They got chances, and that's what they never had through 3/4 of the season was chances to score goals. This team is going to be far better than what they were last year, and better than what they showed even in the last quarter of the year. I think Akins has, like you said, brought a whole different perspective for the team. A lot of the young players are going to get a lot of a great chance to play, and they already know what he's about. And they went down, flourished, came back up. Look at Troy Terry, came back up. All of a sudden, he was NHL ready. All he had to do was spend a couple of months down there, and then he's up and good to go. The goaltending will not have to be shellacked all season. Defensive responsibility gets a hell of a lot better, and I think the offense is designed for younger players and a quicker system and more creativity, which is all Akins has been saying the whole time. So this team missed the playoff by 10 points. I can't imagine them not going 10 to 15 points higher than what they did. They're going to be entertaining one way or the other. If they can bury the puck a little bit more than they did as the worst offense in the league, all they have to do is maintain everything else. And this is a playoff team, in my opinion.
Wow, that's some pretty high praise, man.
Prove me wrong.
Pretty high praise. I'm higher on this team.
That was wrong.
I'm just saying, I'm pretty high on this team as well. But to say that they're a playoff team, I mean, even a bubble team, that's some strong expectation here because
I think they can get
a lot of things have to go right. A lot of things have to go right with these
mostly
kids.
Not being injured.
Biggest boom or bust team, I think, out of any team in the Pacific Division, and things either go really well or they could go really bad. I think
probably chalk up to Manson, Fowler, and Lindholm all having really bad seasons last year,
and not on the same line forever.
And Carlisle doing ridiculous things like separating Manson and Lindholm, and when Manson played with Fowler, or he played with I forgot who else he was tethered with off and on throughout the season. It was a very forgettable year.
It was horrific.
But, they were bad up and down the lineup. I mean, Ryan Getzlaf, is it the Ryan Getzlaf that we've seen? Obviously, he's slowly declining. He's older. I think that his elite status, you could probably peel that sticker almost all the way off at this point. He's still a really good player. But that's what you're going to have to expect here. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of room for players to jump up and make impact when you're talking about the young guys. Sam Steele maybe comes in and scores 40, 45 points this season. Maybe Comtois hits 20 goals. If Kasha stays healthy, let's say he hits 30 goals. He's the best play driver nearly in the league behind Mark Stone. And we have him on our team. There's a lot of upside here, but a lot of it has to go right with the kids. A lot of it has to go right with the kids.
I think when you look at it, you've got John Gibson, you've got the best. There's a lot of good things going for the Ducks, but it's boom or bust, right? You've got John Gibson, that's a guarantee. He's going to be great. But this isn't it for any team. But if he got hurt, I think obviously that derails the Ducks' entire season. But he is the rock on this team. He's going to be good, and that's a huge plus for the Ducks in their playoff push is having a guy like John Gibson. We've talked about all these teams that are close. We looked at Vancouver being a team that got better, but goaltending is an issue for them. Calgary is a great team, but goaltending, right? That seems to be the issue for a lot of these teams. For the Ducks, it's not an issue. And I think when you look at the potential 4 lines that this team could roll this year, there's a lot of depth when you compare them to some of the teams in the Pacific Division. Projected lines have been all over the place, but if the Ducks ran with Getzlaf, Kasha, and Ritchie on the first line, Steele, Raquel, Silverberg on the second line, Henrique, Comtois, and Terry on the third line, and some mix of Jones, Shore, Sprong, Sherwood, Eddie, Rowney, something like that. That is some significant depth, and we're talking about the other guys that are still not in the lineup that are going to be playing in San Diego or that are going to be healthy scratch that can come in and still play. They're still NHLers. They're still good bottom 6 players, right? That's not too bad. I think obviously Ritchie on the top line isn't ideal for a lot of people, but there's some depth there. The problem is Nick Ritchie has to play well. Andre Cash has to stay healthy. Sam Steele would have to be a 40-50 point guy to be a reliable second line center. Adder Henrique still has to produce as a third line center at 40-50 points. Comtois would have to be a 20 goal scorer. Troy Terry, you would hope, would hit 30 or 40 points. are Jones and Sprong going to do anything?
So where do you guys have the points in the standings? Where do you guys have the points in the standings in, Ed?
I think because now we're done, we can kind of look at this. I think there's going to be 2 teams that clear the top, and that's going to be Vegas and San Jose. I think we can all agree on that, right? I think those are our top 2 in the Pacific Division.
Yeah, not in that order, but yes.
Well, I go Vegas, San Jose, 1-2.
I guess San Jose, Vegas.
Yeah, I have San Jose, Vegas, but I think it could flip flop. I think those are the obvious 1-2. I think from there you've got 4 teams that are going to be mixed in throughout there, depending on how their seasons go. If some things go well, if some things don't go well. I think you've got Arizona. I think you got Vancouver, Calgary, and Anaheim. I think those are the 4 teams that are going to be in there, and it all depends on what things go right and what things go wrong for those teams this year. I think Calgary takes that regression down to about 93, 92 points. I think the Ducks could possibly jump up to the high 80s, 90, 91 points, which is right around what I have Calgary projected as. We had Vancouver around 88, 89 points, and we had Arizona around 86, 87, 88. So they're all in the mix within 4 or 5 points of each other. And I think if you look at the 4 of those teams I just mentioned, which team has the potential to clear the field there, I think the Ducks have to be the pick there. I think just with goaltending and the potential for everything to go right, if it does go right, the Ducks are the team I think you have to just put a little bit above those other teams.
Yep, I would agree with you on that.
100%. Yeah, I have them as the 3rd, so I think they get a division spot. Their offense, in my opinion, will be much better than what it was last in goals or shots for and goals for. Defense will return to form, in my opinion, and the goalies are already elite. I mean, that's a number 1, 2, in my opinion. I mean, so that's enough. It's not enough to dethrone what Vegas has. We do have a lot of young players, and we don't have necessarily an elite defense. So it's Vegas is better at offense than us. San Jose is better at defense than us. But other than that, we have a right mix of everything else. And if you look at last season and go like, well, it's kind of the same team, but now we got young guys who don't know how to play. I'm just like, throw everything out from last year. That was just a lost season for the Ducks. Everything is going to get better.
If Bob Murray can squeeze out decent hockey out of these kids and out of this lineup after they fired Randy Carlyle, I'm not really worried about what Dallas Aikens can do.
Last 10 games of the season, the Ducks were the best team in the Pacific Division. So they were showing some promise. Before we wrap up Pacific Division preview and just kind of do some housekeeping on Ducks news, let's quickly run through your rankings, each of our rankings for the top 8 for the Pacific Division. I'll start. So I've got the Sharks number 1, Vegas number 2, Calgary number 3, slightly above Anaheim at number 4. Then I've got Arizona and the Canucks tied on points, and whatever the tiebreaker will be at that point. Then the Oilers and the Kings. Kings at number 8.
I was exactly the same, with the exception of I had Anaheim in 3rd and Calgary in 4th. Other than that, I had San Jose 1st, Vegas 2nd, Ducks 3rd, Calgary 4th, Arizona 5th, Vancouver 6th, Edmonton, LA.
I didn't make a ranking. Honestly, I goofed on that, just to be clear. But that is right, honestly, I've been staring at it, and I would probably put those
Vegas
in the exact order as what Ed did for the top 4. But I don't know, man. Jason, you kind of got me leaning on the Ducks.
You have Vegas number 1, though, right?
That's all I do is I just change people's opinions.
I take Vegas number 1 for sure. Vegas Sharks.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. Yeah.
Vegas Sharks, and then I hate Mike Smith so much, and I hate Cam Talbot so much. Damn it, dude! I'm gonna have to be a homer. I got to put the Ducks in that 3rd slot. I got to go Vegas Sharks. Ducks, and then after that, I would probably either put
it's hard to take a team that was 107 and drop them 10 to 15 points. But I can see Anaheim going from 80 to 15 points ahead. In my opinion,
through this, it's going to go Vegas Sharks, Ducks, Coyotes, Calgary, Vancouver.
Oh my God! Arizona ahead of Calgary.
It's kind of what we're doing there.
Well, there's a potential for Calgary to fall that far. I think we talked about them being. I think that what we're going to see, I think what we all agree on is that the Flames are going to be the biggest fallers in this division, and I think the Ducks are going to be the biggest risers.
The biggest jumpers, yeah.
That will likely be what happened. The Canucks maybe have the potential to overthrow the Ducks for biggest risers, and I don't think anybody has the potential to overthrow the Flames as biggest fallers. I don't think the Sharks and the Golden Knights are going to get much worse. So, sorry for Flames fans. I know we have so many listening to our podcast, but...
Before we move on, though, Ed, I think I don't know. What do you guys think? My power is going to turn off here in 19 minutes or less.
I was gonna say I think I have like 6% on my phone, so I almost have to plug in so I can go on speaker until I get a laptop.
Way longer than we thought it was going to. With all
is that already an hour?
Well, then we can just we can run through this for like in 2 minutes. I just quickly.
I just don't want to lose power. Thanks, California Edison, for shutting me down at 9 p.m. tonight. Really appreciate it.
I don't know when we're gonna be back again.
Tonight.
We didn't get to watch the preseason games, so I got to watch a little bit of the first one, but not a lot. And the second one wasn't aired. We talked about the lines a bit, but the line that everybody seems to want to talk about is Raquel Steele-Silfverberg. I think that's the most exciting line for the Ducks this year. Cuts likely to be made tomorrow, right? Or Wednesday, because they have 3 games in a row.
Yeah, Kings, San Jose, and
a lot of
Arizona.
roster turnover in those games because you're not going to want to play too many guys back-to-back nights. So do you think cuts get made Monday, or do you think cuts get made after the game on Wednesday?
I think they'll be made on Tuesday. They'll be made after the third game. It makes sense for them to start cutting then and have half the preseason left.
To have game Monday and Tuesday game finish and then have some cuts for the Wednesday game?
They have to. Yeah, they're going to have to start cutting people at this point. I mean, because after Wednesday, they only have a game on Saturday and they're done.
Most teams have started to cut a lot of players anyway, so
the Ducks are just in that tough spot that I don't think I've ever seen 3 games in a row for
right at the end.
and the fact that Gulls training camp opens Monday, so there was a lot of rumors that maybe some of the players that are for sure, like Pot-Uralski and those guys who are for sure going to be going down to San Diego.
I would say Monday then, yeah.
So maybe we see a couple tomorrow, like those guys like Pot-Uralski and Martinson and stuff like that.
Give and one more try next Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think then we start seeing I think Braden Tracy's still here, so maybe we start seeing some of the CHL and the junior cuts after games 1 and 2 when it doesn't there's no timetable for those guys to really get cut. We'll talk about the major competition at left wing later because I think that warrants a bigger discussion with Jones, Ritchie, Comtois, Raquel, Shore, Delorier, possibly Silfverberg, all kind of vying for spots. Justin Faulk trade is dead. His agent Brian Bartlett, he said his agent hesitated to call it completely dead, but he said you never know what can happen, but it sure looks that way. I think it's dead. The Ducks were rumored
Carolina owner killed it.
Yeah,
talking about caution being in it.
To give him an extension of around $6.75 million. How did you guys feel about that, real quick?
Not a fan, dude. Wasn't a fan of that. I didn't think it was because they wanted him locked up long term too. Was there any term listed on that where they could try to get him?
No, they just said just under 7. I would assume 2, 3, 4 years, something like that. I don't think they would have given him 6 or 7. That would have been really long. But
that would have been rough. I mean, if they're doing that, they're locking in what they have to do come the expansion draft.
Yeah.
And then they have to start. Either that, or they're leaving them exposed and hope they grab them and take them off.
If you had brought them in, you would have had to expose the defenseman, which at this point is kind of counterintuitive for the Ducks. I know you want to go out and get a right shot.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, because if he signed a no movement extension, then
you could expose him. But you know that Seattle would likely take him he'd only be 29.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like if he had a no move or no trade clause when he signed the extension, then the Ducks are screwed. Like holding him, and then they got Manson, they got Lindholm and Fowler that they have to hold. So at that point, they have to expose more forwards, and I don't think they wanted to do that either.
Probably not.
Or at least I wouldn't want to do it.
LeBrun reported that Murray was also looking at Ristolainen, but the price was too high. We talked about this before. I'm not a huge fan of Ristolainen. I don't like a lot of the underlying numbers that go with his game. And I'm kind of glad that the price was too high that he didn't go for him. Yeah. I think Faulk was a good fit.
It was a good fit. The price was
lower on Ristolainen. They need a right shot defenseman. I think maybe he still gets something done, not a big move, but something done before the start of the season. But I think they're willing to go with Larson and Fowler as guys possibly on the right side because that's what it looks like it's going to be to start the season. Last thing, orange jerseys are returning, slightly different. I think the neckline is different. I'm wearing the Reebok one right now, but I think the orange is a bit darker, and the neckline, obviously, because Adidas is a bit different. It says Anaheim on the inside of the collar. All we've seen so far is originally, I think Ricky was the one who found it first. He bought the jersey. He found one on eBay, and it was $170 US, and he bought it. It's on the way to his house, so we're waiting for verification on if it's real or not. It looks real. It looks it's got the Adidas symbol. Icestetics.
Most people are reporting it. Yeah.
Yeah. Icestetics recently just took hold of that and put out I think an article of their own. So they're saying it's a leak and it's sponsored real as well. So Ricky might be the first one outside of anyone in the organization to have it. So congrats to Ricky for getting that. We're looking forward to seeing it. But how do you guys feel about them going back to the orange thirds?
I always like those ones, but nothing's gonna blow my skirt up with excitement here. Like, oh wow, another jersey. It's like, oh, cool, I already own that one. It's in my closet. I'm not gonna rebuy it.
But this one's slightly different.
Ugh. I have a
better Adidas, so it's like
$250, please.
Please.
Just slightly different.
I like it. No, I'm not gonna buy it. I have the Reebok one that I'm wearing right now. I'm not gonna get another one. I'm slightly disappointed because you look at what the Kings did with their thirds. I really like the fact that they went retro with that Chevy type look that they have, and then the Blues with their retros. I really like the St. Louis Blues retros they had from back in the day when Gretzky and Pronger used to wear those. You got teams doing that. You got Winnipeg's Heritage Classic jersey is one of the nicest jerseys I've ever seen. Calgary's Winter Classic jersey or Heritage Classic jersey were nice too, and then the Ducks are just saying, we're just gonna go to what worked before, and we're gonna bring back the orange one. I hope that means next year they're working on something better. But when you have to follow up, like we all kind of liked the ones from last year, right? I think we liked them.
Yeah. On the bottom, I think.
I didn't like that the color, like they still didn't want to go full mighty, and the colors were different. The teal and the purple, or they didn't really have the purple, but the teal was not the same. And I can't remember if they had purple on it, but the purple also wasn't the eggplant as well. They didn't want to go full retro with that. So I hope if they go to new jerseys, they kind of change things up a bit, but we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. I think the rumor is still going around is the Ducks are eventually going to switch to orange homes. So
wait, they're going to New Jersey for...
Oh, Jesus. There it comes.
All right.
Dad joke time.
All right. Well, I think...
Wait, real quick, before we go, are you guys excited about the Josh Manson bobblehead while he's riding the bull? Are you going to be at the game January 9th against Dallas?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, he's riding the bull.
I've seen it.
Yeah, he's riding the bull. He's got a cowboy
Feeling the flow.
And then they're also... somehow giving out a Zamboni-themed gravy boat that you can use for Thanksgiving. It's going to be available.
That makes more sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Very interesting giveaways. But I like the bobblehead stuff. I'll be there for some of the stuff for sure, especially the Wild Wing Troll doll. I kind of want that.
Oh, girl.
Was
it just like just that
little fuzzies? Yeah, he's a little hairy going. Yeah.
I think they've done that before. I've seen that before.
They probably have.
Yeah. Oh, let's recycle crap. Let's do it.
But do we got anything else, boys, or are we done for the night until we do? We're definitely doing
because we're expecting your power to turn off in like a couple minutes. So
yeah.
So I think we're done for the night. We've got some more lineup stuff that will develop over preseason. I think we'll probably do one for sure, maybe two more shows before the start of the season to kind of recap the rest of preseason, roster cuts, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there'll be more stuff that will come out. Maybe Bob Murray makes a move, so there will definitely be more news to cover. But I don't know if it's going to go one or two shows. We have Pucks and Brews for Patreon, so anybody who is on Patreon or whoever is not on Patreon, one of our favorite shows, Patreon's favorite show to do is Pucks and Brews. We talk all NHL hockey news. And we drink beer.
And brews.
Yeah.
Sometimes Eddie drinks even.
Might get
lucky.
Yeah. If Mango Cart is
we should make him drink Pink Whitney's, the Amstel vodka.
I don't want. Well, I'll get into that Pucks and Brews. That whole fad thing. It's so like people just post on Instagram and like Twitter posts like it's like
it blew it up.
Like it's amazing that they got a hold of this stuff. We'll talk about that in Pucks and Brews. So if you want to hear
more, we'll definitely discuss it because Jay and I have definitely tried it. So
also on Patreon, we have a rant show coming, and we have a game show. We do a game show on Patreon called Bobby's Bargain Bin, where you can
win.
Nothing
like waiting all month to do 3 shows.
Yeah, you can win wonderful merch from signed merch from Bobby's Bargain Bin signing. So your favorite players like Jared Bull and Lucas Spiza and Danny Heatley and
Stanislav Chisov.
Newly acquired Nick Delorier.
Yeah, Nick Delorier. Right. There you go. So there's so we'll do that, and then for our patrons who participate in that at the end of the season, we actually have like a prize you probably want to win,
like a good one.
Yeah, we haven't finalized it yet, but it'll be a good prize. It'll actually be a really good one. It's a grand prize at the end of the season for our Patreon.
We have to drop hard money on it. We will get you a good prize.
But if you haven't checked it out, it's patreon.com. I think it's still /puckguys for Evermighty. So check that out, or check it out on our website at forevermighty.com. It's the Cake Eaters Club, so check that out.
Join the Cake Eaters, boys and girls. It's fun. We have fun, and we love all the support. So check that out, like Eddie said, and we'll talk to you guys soon next weekend for Patreon. And
head over to iTunes.
Quit interrupting Eddie. Eddie was on a roll, and you're just effing it up.
I'm worried about the power
before the season starts. It helps us get the show going. We're trying to get everything launched up and get everybody excited for the beginning of the season. So if you have the time, we really appreciate heading over to iTunes and giving a rating and review too. So that's it. My spiel is done.
No, I was just worried about my power going out, man. It's going to go out any second. Just wait. Sure. Let's wait. Let's just stay live until it goes out.
Literally, my phone's going to die before that happens. But
we'll stay. I'm running the stream, so we'll stay live until everybody else leaves until me. So Pat's power will go out and Jason's phone will die, and then we'll leave. Jason's picture just got smaller, so I think his phone is on the last 5%.
Is it? Oh, I must be like.
All right.
Is it?
All right.
They get smaller.
Stay tuned to our social media so we can when the next show is.
I can power mine up real quick.
Likely next week. So we'll talk to you guys then.
Hold
on.